The Galactic Council chamber glowed under thousands of golden lights, stretching higher than any human had ever seen. Every corner of the vast room was filled with alien delegates, their colorful robes flowing like rivers of silk. Some had scales that shimmered in the light, others had eyes that blinked sideways, and a few even floated in the air without legs. But all of them had one thing in common. They were staring at the single human standing in the center of the hall. Ambassador Reyna Solis stood straight, her hands behind her back, her face calm. She wore a simple white uniform with the emblem of Earth's United Nations glimmering softly on her shoulder. In front of her, a giant holographic display showed Earth spinning slowly in space. Around it floated symbols representing trade deals, peace treaties, and alliances, all glowing red. Every one of them marked as under review. The voice of the Council Chancellor filled the hall. His skin was metallic silver, his eyes bright and cold. "Ambassador Solis," he said, "Earth has failed to meet the obligations of the Galactic Treaty. Your species has ignored Council requests, withheld resources, and resisted shared command. You stand before us today to answer for your world's arrogance." Reyna did not flinch. She looked up at the thousands of eyes watching her. "We did what was right for our people," she said simply. The Chancellor leaned forward, his silver robes flowing like liquid metal. "Right for your people?" he repeated. "You forget, human, that your planet only stands because this council allowed it. You owe your survival to us." A wave of laughter rolled through the chamber, deep, echoing, cruel laughter that bounced off the glass walls. Some delegates whispered to each other, trading jokes about Earth's primitive history, its small fleets, and its endless wars. One of them said loud enough for all to hear, "Humans still fight among themselves, yet they dare speak of unity." More laughter followed. Reyna said nothing. Her heart beat fast, but her expression did not change. She remembered her training. Never show weakness before the council. Humans had learned long ago that silence could be louder than words. The Chancellor continued, his voice rising. "This meeting is not about your pride, human. It is about your refusal to obey. The council demands your resources and your fleets for collective defense. Your defiance endangers stability. Perhaps you have forgotten your place." Reyna slowly stepped forward. "No," she said softly. "We have remembered it." The hall quieted. Every eye turned toward her. Even the Chancellor leaned back slightly, his curiosity breaking through his arrogance. "For years," Reyna said, "Earth signed every treaty, honored every rule, and gave everything asked of us. We gave our technology, we gave our people, we even gave our voice to this council." Her tone hardened. "But you did not respect us. You mocked us. You laughed at the very idea of humans standing beside you as equals." The lights above flickered slightly. A few delegates exchanged uneasy glances. "Ambassador," the Chancellor said, his tone suddenly sharp, "watch your words." Reyna raised her head higher. "No," she said. "You should watch ours." At that moment, the holographic display behind her flickered. The glowing red symbols of Earth's treaties began to fade one by one. The word active changed to terminated. 1, 2, 5, 10, dozens vanished in seconds. The delegates rose from their seats, shouting in disbelief. "What is happening? Who authorized this? Is this a human attack?" The Chancellor slammed his metallic hand on the console. "Ambassador Solis, explain this at once." Reyna stood still. "Every treaty Earth ever signed with the Council," she said quietly, "has been ended." Chaos broke loose. The sound of hundreds of alien voices filled the air. Some screamed for sanctions. Others called for war. Security drones hovered closer to Reyna, their weapons aimed, yet she did not move. "Do you realize what you've done?" the Chancellor shouted. "Yes," Reyna said. "For the first time in centuries, humanity is free." Outside the Council station, something vast moved in the darkness of space. Dozens of human ships, long-range cruisers, old exploration vessels refitted for defense, had suddenly powered up their engines. Their communications went dark, their signals encrypted. On their hulls shone a new insignia, a silver-blue planet surrounded by a single burning line of light, the mark of the Terran Command. In the Council chamber, alerts flashed across every screen. Reports came in from border worlds, human colonies cutting off trade, human ships refusing inspection, human ambassadors leaving their posts. Reyna looked up at the Chancellor one last time. "You thought Earth needed your mercy," she said. "You were wrong. We showed restraint because we believed peace was worth it, but peace cannot survive without respect. The Chancellor glared at her. This is madness. You will isolate yourselves. Reyna turned and began walking toward the massive doors. Maybe, she said softly, but isolation is better than humiliation. As she reached the exit, the chamber trembled slightly. Outside, one of Earth's warships jumped into hyperspace, leaving behind a brilliant blue trail visible through the Council dome. The light illuminated Reyna's face for a moment, calm, determined, unbroken. Behind her, the Council fell into silence. The laughter, the arrogance, the mockery, all gone. What replaced it was fear of what humanity might do next. As the doors closed, Reyna whispered under her breath, You wanted to remind us of our place. Now you'll remember yours. And with that, she stepped into the corridor, disappearing into the golden light of the station. Far beyond the Council world, in the dark silence of space, humanity had just awakened something the galaxy had long forgotten. Its pride, its unity, and its power. The Council chamber stood in silence long after Reyna Solis walked out. Delegates sat frozen, staring at the fading holograms where Earth's treaties once glowed. The red alerts had stopped flashing, but their meaning still echoed through the vast hall. Earth had left the Council. For the first time in galactic history, a founding member had turned its back on the stars. The Chancellor of Vexor sat motionless on his throne-like chair, his silver fingers tapping against the metal armrest. He could hear his own pulse through the silence. Around him, advisors whispered in panic. They can't survive alone, one said. It must be a bluff, another added. But the Chancellor knew humanity too well. He had studied their history, their wars, their strange ability to rise from destruction stronger than before, and something deep in his core told him this wasn't a bluff. It was a beginning. Outside the chamber, Reyna walked through the long crystal corridor, her boots echoing softly against the floor. Through the glass walls, she could see the Council's homeworld, an ocean planet dotted with shining towers and orbiting stations. Every light on those stations represented another empire, another voice that had once claimed authority over the galaxy. She had stood before them all alone and spoken for Earth. Now that chapter was over. Her wrist communicator blinked silently. It was a message from the Terran command. 2 words and confirmed. All links terminated, she exhaled slowly. Humanity had just cut itself off from the most powerful alliance in the known galaxy. It was reckless. It was dangerous. And it was necessary. She walked to the waiting dock, where her transport ship waited under the bright blue light of the hangar. As she stepped aboard, the pilot, a young officer with sharp eyes, saluted her. Orders, Ambassador? Reyna looked at him quietly. We're no longer ambassadors, she said. Set a course for Sol. As her ship pulled away, the stars stretched into lines of light. The Council's world grew smaller behind them, a tiny point fading into darkness. For a long time, Reyna said nothing. The young officer finally spoke. Do you think they'll come after us? She looked out the window. They might, but they'll hesitate first. They always do when they don't understand something. Back in the Council chamber, the panic had turned into anger. They cannot be allowed to leave, shouted one delegate, slamming his clawed hand on the table. Humanity controls several border systems, resources we depend on. Another added, their fleets are small, their weapons outdated. A show of force will remind them who leads the stars. The Chancellor rose slowly, his eyes glowing faintly. You think force will scare them? He said softly. It won't, it never has. If you strike them, they will strike back harder. If you corner them, they will find a way out. That is what makes them dangerous. The other delegate stared at him in disbelief. The Chancellor had always been proud, cold, and certain of his own superiority. But now his voice carried something different, a hint of respect. Prepare a diplomatic notice, he ordered. We will attempt to contact Earth before they do something irreversible. Hours later, the first message was sent. It never reached its destination. Human communication relays along the galactic border had already been shut down. Colonies under human command stopped transmitting data to the Council. Human scientists withdrew from joint projects. The Terran colonies on Beta Prime, Vega, and Titan sent encrypted messages to Earth, and then went dark. News spread quickly across the galaxy. For most, it was disbelief. For others, fear. The younger races whispered that the humans were planning something. The older races, Those that remembered Earth's first wars began reinforcing their fleets quietly. Every empire prepared for what might come. Yet no human ship moved offensively. No attack fleets appeared. There was only silence, an unnerving absolute silence. On Earth, the skies above the United Terran headquarters glowed with the light of returning ships. For decades, the human fleet had been scattered across the galaxy, serving the Council. Now, one by one, those ships came home. Every orbiting dock was alive with movement. Engineers, officers, scientists, all working as if they had been waiting for this moment. In orbit, a massive structure hovered. The Horizon Spire, the heart of Earth's defense network, dormant for 50 years. It was coming online again. Reyna arrived at the Spire's docking bay. The air was cool, the lighting soft and white. General Marcus Hale, commander of Terran Defense, met her at the entrance. He was tall, broad-shouldered, with streaks of gray in his hair. "You did it," he said. His voice carried both pride and gravity. The Council's transmission confirmed. "They didn't expect it." Reyna nodded. "They never do when humans stop asking permission." Hale smiled faintly. "Then it's time." They entered the command center. Dozens of holographic screens floated in the air, showing systems across human space. Green lights marked colonies, blue for fleets, red for Council contact zones. The board was alive with motion. "Status?" Reyna asked. "All Council ships within Terran sectors have been escorted out," Hale said. "Borders are sealed. Communications are ours again. The network's secure." He paused before continuing. "But they won't stay quiet for long. The Council will want control back." Reyna looked at the screen showing the galactic map. Earth was small compared to the Council's empires, but surrounded by colonies loyal to humanity, forming a web of light across the stars. "Then let them come," she said. "This time, we won't kneel." Out in the deep void, far beyond the reach of Council sensors, enormous dark shapes began to emerge from hyperspace. Human warships, old models rebuilt, new ones freshly constructed. Their hulls gleamed with cold silver light. Engines burned blue. Each bore the same symbol, a single Earth rising through the stars. A voice came over the comms. "Command fleet ready for mobilization." "Orders?" Reyna and Hale exchanged a look. "Hold position," Hale said. "No aggression until we're provoked." Reyna added softly, "But make sure they see us." The fleet began to align itself along the border systems, visible on every Council scan. Not a threat, just a reminder. The message was clear. Earth stood alone now, and it was not afraid. Back on the Council world, the Chancellor stared at the reports streaming across his desk. "They're mobilizing," his aide said nervously. The Chancellor closed his eyes. "No," he replied. "They're warning us." He turned toward the window, looking out at the distant stars. "And I fear we've already crossed the line." The silence between worlds deepened. The galaxy waited, holding its breath, as humanity prepared to show what freedom truly meant. The stars above Earth glimmered like silent witnesses as the Terran command fleet took its new formation. Every orbiting ship reflected sunlight over the planet's oceans, streaks of blue and gold gleaming across the dark expanse. From the ground, they looked like constellations that had come alive, lines of warships, freighters, and exploration cruisers moving in perfect unison. Humanity was no longer hiding under the banner of the Galactic Council. It now stood under its own flag once more. In the command center of the Horizon Spire, General Marcus Hale and Ambassador Reyna Solis watched the holographic map of the Sol system rotate slowly. The map showed hundreds of human vessels spread across their colonies, all connected by a silent but synchronized network. The words Terra Autonomy Protocol flashed softly on the screen. Hale folded his arms and said quietly, "For the first time in a century, we answer only to ourselves." Reyna nodded. "And that's what scares them the most." Across the galaxy, fear had turned into curiosity. Some alien empires sent quiet envoys to learn if humanity had truly broken away. Others gathered fleets pretending to maintain peace while preparing for war. The Council's intelligence divisions worked day and night, trying to intercept human communications, but they found only static. Every frequency that once carried human data had gone dark. It was as if Earth had vanished behind an invisible curtain. On the Council world, the Chancellor of Vexor stood before the assembled leaders once again. This time there was no laughter. Holograms of angry delegates flickered around the massive table. Humanity has violated the Unity Accords, shouted the representative of the Threll Dominion. They control entire trade lanes. If they stop supplying quantum fuel, half the Council's fleets will be grounded. Others demanded retaliation, but the Chancellor raised his metallic hand. No, he said calmly. Not yet. We must understand what they are doing before we act. Humans do not move without reason. An advisor approached, whispering urgently. Our long-range sensors detected movements near the Terran borders. Massive ship displacements coordinated, but no weapons activated. The Chancellor's eyes narrowed. Show me. The holographic display flickered, revealing hundreds of human vessels moving across sectors once patrolled by the Council. They're reclaiming old territories, the advisor said. Stations they built decades ago and abandoned under Council law. The Chancellor stared for a long moment before speaking again. Then they are not preparing for war. They're rebuilding an empire. Far from the Council's reach on the moon colony of Selene, hundreds of engineers worked tirelessly inside the newly reopened Terran shipworks. The giant hangars glowed with golden light as massive dreadnought hulls took shape under robotic arms. These ships were not made for conquest. They were shields designed to protect human colonies from anything that might come. The hum of machinery mixed with the rhythmic clanging of metal echoed through the chambers. Workers sang softly, an old Earth tune carried across the intercom, something about home and freedom. Reyna visited the colony days later. She stood on a platform overlooking the shipyard, the air filled with sparks and light. It's beautiful, she said. The chief engineer beside her smiled. For years we built for them. Now we build for ourselves. She turned toward him. Do you think they'll attack? He wiped grease from his hands and shrugged. Maybe. But if they do, they'll remember why humans were feared once. Meanwhile, in deep space, a lone Council scout vessel drifted near the edge of human territory. Its captain, a tall insectoid alien named Kethar, had orders to observe, not interfere. Through the ship's transparent dome, he watched a strange sight. 3 human ships escorting a convoy of smaller crafts. They moved silently, but the coordination was flawless. His sensors detected something even more troubling. The human vessels carried energy cores far beyond known Council regulations. Impossible, his second officer murmured. Those readings are off the charts. Kethar hesitated. Send the data back, he said finally, and pull us back to safe distance. But before they could retreat, one of the human ships turned slightly toward them. For a brief second, Kethar felt a chill. No weapons locked on, no message was sent, but he knew they had been seen. The human ship's lights flashed once, bright and deliberate, before it continued on its path. A silent warning. The scout turned away, retreating into hyperspace. The data they carried would reach the Council soon, and it would cause more panic than anyone expected. Back on Earth, Hale and Reyna stood together in the observatory dome, watching the stars. The Council won't sit quietly, Hale said. Their pride won't let them. Reyna's voice was calm. Let them come. The galaxy has changed, but humanity has always been patient. We waited, we watched, and now we prepare. She paused, her gaze steady. They thought treaties made us weak. They'll soon see they made us stronger. At that same hour, messages from human colonies began to flow in. The Mars colonies had reactivated their defense systems. Luna's base confirmed the completion of 3 interceptor squadrons. The outer colonies on Vega and Titan reported they were now self-sufficient. Each transmission ended with the same words. For Earth, for humanity. The Council's Central Command received reports of these movements and held another emergency session. They are mobilizing, one delegate said. It's a build-up, nothing more, argued another. But the Chancellor remained silent, watching the data scroll across the screen. No, he said finally. This is not build-up. This is awakening. He remembered ancient reports from centuries past. Stories of how humans once survived wars that should have destroyed them, how they adapted faster than any known species. They're doing it again, he whispered, reinventing themselves. Across the galaxy, a quiet tension spread. Every empire watched. Every commander waited. The stars themselves seemed to hold their breath. On the dark side of Luna, deep beneath the surface, a single light pulsed in the void, a beacon that had not been active for 100 years. The inscription on its side read simply, Terra Nova Initiative. A voice came through the darkness, calm and determined. This is Fleet Command to all units. Phase 2 begins now. As the transmission spread across human space, thousands of ships powered up at once. Blue light rippled across the stars like a wave of awakening. Humanity had made its choice. The age of treaties was over. The age of independence had begun. The message from Fleet Command echoed through every human ship and colony. Phase 2 begins now. Across the stars, engines ignited, stations came alive, and quiet sectors that had slept for decades began to shine again with life. Humanity had not only withdrawn from the Council, it had risen from its silence. The galaxy that once mocked Earth was now watching in uneasy awe. At the Horizon Spire, Earth's orbiting command center, Reyna Solis stood before a wall-sized display that showed the entire span of human-controlled space. Blue lights blinked across dozens of systems, signals from colonies, fleets, and outposts reporting readiness. General Marcus Hale stood beside her, arms folded, his face lit by the cool glow of the map. "Every colony reports full synchronization," he said. "Our communication grid is isolated, our supply routes secured. No leaks, no Council interference." Reyna nodded slowly. "Good. Then the Council is blind. Let's keep it that way." She turned to the communications officer. "What's the reaction out there?" The officer hesitated. "Reports suggest confusion among the Council races. Some think we're preparing for war. Others think we're bluffing." Reyna smiled faintly. "Let them keep guessing. Fear grows best in uncertainty." Meanwhile, deep within the alien capital world of the Council, panic meetings filled the grand chambers. The Chancellor of Vexor listened to a dozen voices shouting over each other. "We must send a fleet now," one delegate cried. "If we wait, humanity will strengthen." Another argued, "They're too far. A war would drain our resources. We need diplomacy." The Chancellor's metallic face remained calm, his eyes glowing faintly with internal light. "You all speak of action," he said finally, "but none of you understand what drives them. Humanity doesn't act out of greed or hunger. They act out of pride, and once pride is wounded, there is no treaty strong enough to bind them again." He rose slowly, his voice echoing through the chamber. "We underestimated them before. Let us not make that mistake again. Send no fleets. Watch and learn. The humans will show us what they intend soon enough." Back on Earth, the days passed in disciplined silence. For the first time in generations, humanity moved without asking for approval. Massive orbital docks constructed new warships and research cruisers, while planetary industries shifted from trade-based production to self-sufficiency. The mood across the world was not one of war, it was unity. Old rivalries had faded. Nations once divided now shared the same purpose. Humanity was finally acting as one. At the Academy of Strategic Command in Geneva, young cadets trained under bright sunlight. They studied not alien tactics but human history. One instructor's voice carried across the courtyard. "Remember this, humans don't start wars. They finish them." The cadets repeated it like an oath. In the dark edges of the Sol system, a massive project was nearing completion. It was known only by its code name, Aegis Line. Dozens of automated defense stations were being positioned to form a vast protective shield around Earth's inhabited worlds. It wasn't just military, it was symbolic. Every time a new station powered up, people across Earth cheered. They were no longer the smallest voice in the galaxy. They were becoming something larger, something the stars had to respect again. Late one night, Reyna stood alone at the observation deck of the Horizon Spire. Through the thick glass, she could see the curve of Earth glowing under sunlight. "It looks peaceful," said a voice behind her. General Hale approached, holding 2 cups of steaming synth coffee. "Almost like none of this happened." Reyna took the cup and smiled faintly. "That's the strange thing about peace. You never know how fragile it is until someone laughs at it." They stood in silence for a while, watching the fleet lights drift in the distance. Hale finally spoke again. "Intelligence reports that the Council's surveillance ships have pulled back from the borders." "Afraid?" Reyna asked. "Cautious," he replied. "They don't know what we're building." She sipped her coffee, her eyes still fixed on the stars. "Good. Let's make sure they never do until it's too late." Far across the galaxy, on a cold and distant moon called Varkesh, a small group of alien scientists gathered around a hologram. They were not part of the Council. They were observers, curious scholars who studied civilizations. The hologram displayed Earth's communication blackout, the silent buildup of fleets, the return of colonies under one banner. They're not preparing for conquest, one of them said softly. They're preparing for independence. Another nodded. And if the Council forces them again, it won't be a war of planets. It'll be a war of ideas. The scientists' word spread among independent worlds, and soon small neutral systems began reaching out to Earth in secret, offering trade and cooperation outside Council control. For the first time in centuries, the galaxy's balance of power was shifting, not through fire but through faith. In the Council chamber, this news arrived like a storm. The delegates erupted once more. Even minor worlds are aligning with Earth now, shouted the representative from Drakkar. They're spreading influence faster than any empire. The Chancellor listened quietly, then leaned forward. They're not spreading influence, he said. They're spreading belief, and belief is far more dangerous. Back in Sol, the final piece of the Aegis line came online. A burst of light radiated across the orbital map, a complete defense network linking every major colony and station. The announcement played across every human city. Cheers erupted. Fireworks burst over the oceans. Children on Mars drew Earth's new flag on the domes. For a moment, humanity felt untouchable, but Reyna knew peace never lasted long. She walked back to the command deck where Hale awaited her. The Council will respond soon, she said. They can't allow us to inspire others. Hale nodded grimly. Then they'll test our resolve. He looked out toward the stars, his voice quiet but firm. And when they do, they'll realize something far worse than defiance. They'll realize we've stopped fearing them. In that quiet moment, an alert tone echoed across the control deck. The comms officer looked up sharply. Incoming transmission from Council space. Unidentified signal origin. The room went silent. Reyna exchanged a glance with Hale. Put it through, she ordered. The hologram flickered to life, revealing the face of the Vexor Chancellor. His metallic features reflected the dim light of his chamber. Ambassador Solis, he began slowly. We wish to speak, not as rulers, but as equals. Reyna's eyes narrowed. Then speak, she said. The Chancellor paused. The Council proposes a new understanding, one that may prevent unnecessary escalation. Reyna looked calm, but her voice was firm. We already have understanding, she said. Earth stands alone. That's all you need to understand. The transmission ended, and the room filled with silence again. Hale looked at her and said quietly, He's afraid. Reyna nodded. Good, she said. He should be. Outside, hundreds of human ships moved into new positions across the border systems. Their engines flared in perfect rhythm, casting lines of blue light across the void. The galaxy held its breath again. Humanity had spoken through silence, and the stars were finally listening. The days following the Council's failed transmission changed the rhythm of the galaxy. For the first time in memory, the Galactic Council stopped issuing orders. Their channels fell quiet. Their fleet stood down, and their envoys waited in uneasy silence. Every star nation had eyes fixed on one place, Earth. A single planet that once sat quietly in the corner of the Milky Way now stood like a storm forming at the edge of calm skies. Humanity had done something no other race dared. They had said no. In orbit above Earth, the horizon spire floated like a silent guardian, surrounded by layers of satellites and station rings. Within its command chamber, Reyna Solis and General Marcus Hale watched as reports from across human space flowed in like a steady heartbeat. Every colony, every outpost, every research station was online, stable, and self-sustaining. The Terran Alliance had become something real, no longer just a dream of unity. It was alive. Hale leaned on the edge of the console, scanning the data streams. No signs of aggression from the Council, he said, but they've begun massing fleets near their border worlds. Reyna's expression remained steady. They're watching to see how far we'll go. Hale turned toward her. And how far will we? She didn't answer immediately. Her eyes drifted to the glowing sphere of Earth on the main hologram. As far as we must, she said softly. At that moment, a soft chime interrupted the stillness. The communications officer looked up. Ma'am, long-range sensors just picked up something unusual. Multiple small vessels approaching from Council territory, no weapons active. Hale frowned. Scouts? No, sir, the officer replied. Civilian transports. They're broadcasting distress signals. Reyna straightened. Put them through. The main display shifted to a transmission feed showing several alien ships, old and worn, drifting toward Terran space. Their captains, representatives of smaller independent worlds, spoke through the static. "This is the coalition of minor systems," said a trembling voice. "The Council is collapsing trade routes. We seek refuge. Under humanity's protection." The command center fell silent. Hale exhaled slowly. "They're defecting." Reyna nodded. "The Council's arrogance is driving them away." She looked toward the comms officer. "Grant them safe passage. Escort them to the Vega system. Humanity does not turn away those seeking freedom." News of Earth's mercy spread across the galaxy faster than any fleet could travel. Small worlds, forgotten and abused by the Council for centuries, began reaching out to the Terran Alliance. Merchant guilds pledged trade. Scientists offered to share knowledge. The Council's web of control started to unravel thread by thread. Back on the Council homeworld, the Great Chamber was chaos once more. Delegates shouted, demanded action, called for blockades and threats. But the Chancellor of Vexor remained silent, listening, his metallic face unreadable. Finally, he stood and the entire chamber fell quiet. "You see," he said softly, "they don't conquer. They inspire. We built an empire through fear. They are building one through hope." The chamber erupted again, but the Chancellor walked away. He had seen this before, centuries ago when humanity had first reached the stars. No matter how much others tried to contain them, humans always found a way to rise. Far from Earth in the Vega system, Reyna visited the new refugee station. It was a massive repurposed trade hub, now filled with thousands of alien refugees who had escaped Council control. She moved through the corridors quietly, nodding to the engineers and medics helping the newcomers. One young alien child reached out to touch her hand, eyes wide with curiosity. "You are from Earth?" the child asked. Reyna smiled gently. "Yes." "My father said humans are dangerous," the child whispered. "Are you?" Reyna knelt down, her eyes warm but steady. "Only when we are forced to be." That answer spread through the station like fire. Within days, more ships arrived. Whole populations were beginning to shift toward the Terran border. Humanity had become a symbol, a choice between oppression and dignity. Hale, watching the reports, said quietly, "They're not just joining us, Reyna. They're believing in us." Reyna's voice was calm but determined. "Then we have a responsibility. We can't be what they fear. We must be what they hope for." Hale gave a faint smile. "And if the Council attacks?" Reyna looked out the viewport where the stars shimmered against the black. "Then they'll learn what happens when humanity stops holding back." The Council didn't wait long. Within a week, their intelligence units sent encrypted messages across the galaxy. Every fleet near the Terran border was ordered to prepare for defensive readiness. In practice, that meant war. Massive battleships began moving into position, their engines burning red. On Earth, the alarm never sounded.
Humanity didn't panic.
Instead, the Aegis line activated to full strength. Thousands of automated drones and interceptor platforms formed a glowing ring around the solar system. The human fleet stood by silently, weapons offline, shields charged. Reyna had given a single command: "Do not fire unless fired upon." The galaxy watched the border. Every species held its breath as the Council fleet advanced, hundreds of ships moving in precise formation toward Terran space. The tension was unbearable. One mistake, one shot would ignite a war. Then something unexpected happened. The lead Council ship powered down its weapons and broadcast a public transmission. The face of the Chancellor appeared again, his voice deep and measured. "To the people of Earth," he said, "and to the Terran Alliance. The Council calls for dialogue." On the horizon spire, Hale turned sharply to Reyna. "Dialogue?" She studied the hologram for a long moment. "They've realized they can't fight belief," she said quietly. "Now they'll try to control it instead." Hale frowned. "Should we respond?" Reyna hesitated. She looked at the thousands of ships surrounding Earth, the glowing defense grid, the refugees who had come to trust them. Humanity's future was no longer just about survival. It was about leadership. "Yes," she said finally, "but not as the Council's subject, as their equal." A single transmission left Earth that day. It carried no threats, no demands, only a statement that echoed across the galaxy. Humanity stands as it was always meant to, united, free and unafraid. Across the stars, those words resonated like thunder. The balance of power had shifted forever. As night fell over Earth, Reyna stood by the window of the command deck. The planet below glowed softly under the light of the fleet above. For the first time in her life, she felt something she hadn't known was possible: true peace. But deep within her, a small voice whispered that the story wasn't over. The galaxy never stayed quiet for long. The transmission from Earth swept across the stars. Echoing in 100 languages, in 1,000 worlds, humanity stands united, free and unafraid. No warship fired, no fleet moved. The silence that followed was heavier than the loudest explosion. Every listening civilization felt it, the undeniable shift of power. Humanity, once dismissed as fragile newcomers, had just spoken to the galaxy as equals. On Earth, dawn rose over the Atlantic like liquid gold. The fleet in orbit shimmered in the morning light, and for the first time in centuries, the world below was united under one flag. In the great plaza of Geneva, people gathered around public holograms showing the message replaying again and again. Children pointed at the sky, cheering. Old veterans wiped tears from their eyes. The words had done more than declare independence. They had awakened pride buried deep within every human heart. Inside the Horizon Spire, Ambassador Reyna Solis stood before the Council of Terran Command. The holographic display showed hundreds of incoming transmissions, requests from neutral systems wanting to open trade, colonies seeking alliances, independent fleets offering cooperation. Humanity had gone from isolation to influence in a single sentence. General Hale entered, his uniform crisp, eyes sharp, but tired. "The entire galaxy heard you, Reyna," he said. "Even the Council couldn't block the signal. You didn't just speak for us, you spoke for everyone they ever silenced." Reyna smiled faintly. "Then let's make sure we live up to their hope." But not everyone was ready to accept this new balance. Deep within the Galactic Council's fortress world, tension had fractured the unity of its members. In one of the dim-lit chambers, a secret meeting took place. Representatives from the largest empires whispered under heavy shadows. "We can't let them rise further," hissed the Drakkar warlord. "They'll dominate trade, technology, and diplomacy within months. We must strike before they consolidate." The Chancellor of Vexor listened silently, the light glinting off his metallic skin. "And yet," he said slowly, "you forget what happens when humans are attacked. You'll win the first battle, perhaps the second, but then they'll come back smarter, stronger, and unstoppable." He looked at them one by one. "No, violence will only prove their strength. We will use something else." "What do you propose?" asked one delegate. The Chancellor leaned closer, his voice quiet but sharp. "Divide them. Humanity's unity is their weapon. We remind them what they once were, separate nations, rival ideologies. If they lose faith in their own unity, they'll destroy themselves." Meanwhile, in human space, the Terran Alliance thrived. Colonies shared research and resources freely. New starships were being built not for war, but exploration and defense. The first wave of diplomatic envoys, human, alien, and hybrid crews, departed Earth to form the new Free Systems Network. It was a symbol of equality across species, something the old Council had never allowed. Reyna watched their departure from the observatory. The ships left bright blue trails behind them, like veins of light across the stars. Hale joined her, holding a small datapad. "Reports from Vega and Titan colonies," he said. "They've completed their autonomous stations. Everything's stable." "Good," Reyna said. "We need to show the galaxy that peace doesn't need chains to survive." She paused, glancing at him. "Still no word from the Council?" "Only silence," Hale replied. "Which means they're planning something," Reyna nodded. "Let them. Whatever they do, we'll adapt." But that night, as Earth slept under its glowing fleet, the first spark of the Chancellor's plan ignited. From the depths of the data networks, carefully disguised transmissions began slipping through, the kind designed to plant doubt. They appeared as harmless reports, academic debates, minor disagreements between colonies. Yet each one carried the same subtle message. Why should Earth lead? Why not us? At first, no one noticed. The colonies were too busy celebrating their newfound independence. But small discussions grew louder. Some outer worlds began to question why decisions were still made on Earth. In the colony of Vega Prime, a local leader broadcast a speech calling for equal command over Terran fleets. Within hours, dozens of systems echoed the same sentiment. When the reports reached the horizon spire, the control room grew tense. Hale slammed his hand on the console. "They're trying to turn our own unity against us," he said. Reyna stared at the data scrolling across the screen. "The Council's behind it," she said quietly. "They couldn't beat us with ships, so now they use whispers." Hale clenched his jaw. "What's the move?" "Nothing yet," Reyna said calmly. "If we silence them, it will look like fear. Let them speak. Humanity's strength has never been in control. It's in choice." The following week, Reyna addressed the entire Terran Alliance in a broadcast seen across every colony and station. Her image appeared under soft white light, eyes steady and voice clear. "My brothers and sisters among the stars," she began, "we were mocked, ruled, and underestimated. We stood together because we knew unity was our only way forward. Now others will try to break it. They'll whisper that Earth seeks power, that unity means control, but they are wrong." She paused as the camera drew closer. "We do not lead by dominance. We lead by example. Every world that stands with us stands free, and freedom has no master." The speech spread faster than the Council's lies could keep up. Colonies that had begun to question returned their allegiance, proud once again to be part of something larger. For every rumor, 10 more voices rose in defiance. Humanity's unity held firm, tested but not broken. In the council chamber, the Chancellor watched the broadcast replay on a hologram. "She's good," one advisor said quietly. The Chancellor's expression darkened. "She's better than good," he said. "She's dangerous. Humanity has found its voice." Back on Earth, Reyna received a personal message from one of the defected alien leaders. "We've seen the kind of peace you build," it said. "We will stand with you when the Council falls." That night, Reyna stood alone at the edge of the spire's viewing deck. The Earth turned slowly beneath her feet, its blue oceans reflecting the light of the fleet above. "They thought ending treaties would end our place in the stars," she murmured to herself. "But they only gave us something greater to believe in." Below, the cities of Earth glowed brighter than ever. Humanity was no longer afraid. It had survived mockery, isolation, and deception, and still stood taller than before. But far beyond the edges of human space, deep within the void, something vast and silent began to stir, a presence older than both the Council and Earth. As sensors across distant outposts flickered with strange readings, an unknown transmission whispered through the darkness. "They are awake." Reyna stared at the screen as the message came through. "Who sent that?" she demanded. The comms officer swallowed hard. "We don't know, ma'am. It's not from the Council. It's coming from beyond mapped space." The room fell silent. Hale looked at her, eyes narrowing. "Whatever it is, it knows we're here." And somewhere in the endless dark, a shadow passed between the stars, vast and watching. The Council's games had ended, but a new mystery had begun, one that would test not just humanity's strength, but its very place in the universe.